even during their bye week, the Baltimore Ravens have no shortage of storylines. Is they and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson mutually agreed to part ways in an abrupt end to their week-long partnership. And there are even more questions now, especially after Chauncey Gardner-Johnson quickly broke his silence. We talk about that and so much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, if you're somewhere in the middle. Thank you as well. We have 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage here as we dive into everything relating to this Baltimore Ravens team. In a jam-packed episode today as Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and the Ravens abruptly parted ways on Tuesday, and Gardner-Johnson quickly broke his silence after the fact. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about Daniel Faalele being praised by George Warhop, the Ravens offensive line coach. And finally, can health actually save the Ravens coming out of their bye week? We'll talk about that as well. So again, thank you everybody for being here. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And here with me today to talk about this Ravens team is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail of Missile Training and MissileTraining.com, as well as the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. And Q, even during the bye week, the Ravens give us no shortage of content, no shortage of storylines, and a 1-5 football team has a lot of soul searching to do, and they need to make the most of their bye week as they look to get to the root of their problems.
Yeah, I think the big thing we look at with this Baltimore Ravens ball club, it's finding their identity. Who are you? You're 1-5. Your record is what you say you are, and you are what your record says you are. Something along those lines. But the bottom line is it's not good. It's not where we expected. It's not a 5-1 record. Maybe you lost to the Chiefs, or maybe you lost to the Bills. Maybe you beat both of them and you had a hiccup game against Cleveland, or maybe you had a hiccup game against the Texans. None of that. It has been a disaster this entire season. The offensive line that everyone inside the building thought was going to be a strength is not. You look at it from a defensive front, oh my gosh. I mean, you and I, we were like, okay, Owe, you gained weight. Ooh, you got more muscle. But Owe ain't even on the team anymore because his production was next to nothing. You thought Roquan Smith, okay, cool. Man, you know what? You kind of had an off year last year, and this is going to be the turnaround. Had a pretty solid camp. He's been kind of in a just weird neutral space. Not really good. Had the one game that looked like it was Roquan of old, but that quickly turned into like Roquan of old turned into where's Roquan again? And of course, the hamstring puts him on the sideline. You look at just offensively and Lamar Jackson and company and thinking that, what both Lamar and Derrick Henry for another year. Oh, man, we got you. Well, like I said, no offensive line. You're seeing the very inconsistency of both Lamar as well as Derrick Henry. From the John Harbaugh aspect of things, like he spins it positive like no other coach can. I applaud him for that. I'm a glass half full person. I always think the best of things. But in this particular case, a 1-5 record after 18 years, I think if there was ever the elephant in the room to say that, gee, has your time come and gone, and has the message got stale within the castle? That to me is the big question. But we know that, yeah, when it comes down to Steve Bisciotti, he's not going to sit there and give us a clue or a hint. This is going to be something that is going to be once the season is concluded. And we haven't even talked about Eric DeCosta and some of the things that and decisions that he's made from years ago that is now showing itself a la that offensive and defensive line. Kevin, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Q. And yeah, you know what? I think everybody deserves a piece of the blame pie here as, we kind of go through, obviously, how much of that blame pie do some people get over others. That's a different conversation. But, the organization right now is just not in a good place considering the start to the season. And again, that they're making headlines and storylines for the wrong reasons, as the Ravens are now caught up in another one of these like weird situations that were so rare, it seemed like, for years with them, where Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is now no longer a member of the team. He ends up parting ways with the Ravens mutually. That was the word used here. It was a mutual decision between both the Ravens and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. The official wording by Adam Schefter in his tweet after he reported it, he said, Gardner-Johnson's agent made it clear after the Ravens traded for a safety, we were looking for a clearer path to play. And so this kind of leaves more questions than answers. It was, again, an amicable mutual decision. But then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson broke his silence very generally. It was a very general tweet, not aimed at the Ravens. It was aimed at all the teams that he's played for over the course of his career. And he said, quote, I just want to take a moment to thank all the teams I've been a part of, coaches, teammates, and everyone who's supported me along the way. Every experience has helped me grow both on and off the field. I'm truly grateful for all the opportunities and memories. Football has always been a big part of who I am, and my passion for the game is still strong. I'm excited to keep working, improving, and continuing to play the sport I love. So again, not a lot to take away from the messaging itself from a Ravens perspective. I don't know if CJ Gardner-Johnson thinks that his image is even more damaged because of this whole situation. I think there are questions on both sides here. Obviously, CJ Gardner-Johnson, why come to the team if there's not an opportunity? But that's less of my question. The question to me is more with the organization, where it comes to CJ Gardner-Johnson came to Baltimore. I can answer that question because there was an opportunity for about 3 hours until the Ravens traded for traded Odafe Oweh and got Alohi Gilman in. So was the messaging just not there? Did they not communicate that to CJ Gardner-Johnson, or did the trade, because John Harbaugh said the trade came together pretty quickly, did they decide to bring in Gilman after they had signed Gardner-Johnson without knowing that Gilman was even going to be a part of their plans? That happens. And then Gardner-Johnson's camp is like, whoa, hold on, wait, we had this conversation. Like, I wonder what those conversations were between, hey, your role's going to be this, then all of a sudden you trade for another guy, and that whole plan kind of goes out the window and everything changes. So again, it's not like I blame Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for this, because I think I don't know what the plan was for them with Gardner-Johnson before Gilman versus after Gilman, but it was a very short amount of time between both moves. And there was also maybe writing on the wall cue with CJ Gardner-Johnson liking tweets about going back to Philadelphia. And he had another cryptic post himself before all this went down about how he's kind of, protecting what's going on with him. DeAndre Hopkins responded to his tweet and said, keep going, young bull, always keep that fire. So again, this opens up so many questions. I don't even know where to begin with it.
Well, I just think that, from the D-Hop aspect of things, I mean, that's just a veteran giving you some strong encouragement. I'm sure they probably broke bread as far as the Texans and what he felt went on or didn't go on. I know, D-Hop's front office / head coach was way different than, CJ Gardner-Johnson's. But, yeah, breaking bread and talking shop, I'm sure there was some things that, put him in a position to say that tweet. Playing time, when I look at CJ and the kind of way in which he either felt like he was the better player, showed himself when it comes to, I guess, volatility maybe is the right word to say. He's very volatile with his teammates. Kind of abrasive, if you will, with some of the coaches. Clearly, his talent speaks for itself as far as him being on the field at key points in time. And obviously, the Super Bowl run that Philly went on. But also getting rid of him says a lot as far as how much either the position coach or head coach or just the organization in general, how much they can technically stomach and stand. It goes to show you with regards to the Texans, things aren't working well, and you got a defensive-minded coach in D'Amico Ryans, and if he's like, "Oh, nah, bro, you're done," then something is there. I don't know what, but something is there that needs to be addressed and looked at. But I think overall for him here for the Ravens, and this is where, again, from an EDC accountability, looking at the bigger picture, everybody is consistently praising the whole value trading, salary cap, all that other like niche stuff. And we talking about, like, are you getting ballers for this club? From an EDC standpoint, I think there has to be some level of accountability of putting this team together too. And so that is where the CJ element of it all, like, what was it that you saw, or what was it that you're wanting, and what is it that now would make you have to reverse course? Sure, it takes two to tango, but you tango. What was that reversing of the course? Because if you want accountability from players, you need to have accountability for yourself as well.
Yeah, and I was honestly kind of excited to see CJ come in and play for the Ravens here a little bit, because I think CJ Gardner-Johnson's skill set was something that they could have used. Gilman's a little different of a player. I mean, he's more of a run support guy, sometimes struggles in coverage. CJ Gardner-Johnson, 6 interceptions in both his years in Philly. You mentioned the Super Bowl run last season with them, where he was a big part of that defense. So I was curious to see. I mean, it could have ended a lot of different ways. Clearly, this was one of the weirder ways it could have ended, but it also kind of fits into a weird pattern recently with Deontay Johnson, Marcus Williams, Eddie Jackson, like drama that usually doesn't follow this organization. And there's obviously been a little more than that too over the last calendar year plus, which is just kind of odd for this organization. So I don't know. And again, CJ Gardner-Johnson had the comments about how, the Ravens were his only option, and those were obviously taken away. That I think a lot of people like, oh, hi, he doesn't want to be here, which I don't think that's necessarily all the way true. I think that, again, without context, it's hard to know what he meant. But even still, when you say something like that, they're going to be spun the way that they were spun. Like, that's just the natural, that's what happens when there's not that context in there. And there were reports after that he was, getting acclimated with his teammates, good presence in the locker room. So I don't really know, but there was just all these layers in there that just kind of escalated. They didn't activate him for the game on Sunday, I think, which kind of maybe put the writing on the wall there. Just an overall very weird situation, and a string of very weird situations for this team.
Yeah, and again, I think that's where Eric DaCosta has to do his due diligence and say, all right, what's the immediate fix? What can we look at, like, right this minute to help this ball club? We are literally treading in the deep end with no life preserver. I need to figure this out. And I think that's something that, from an Eric DaCosta aspect of things, you got to say, like, you're the front line of the personnel. Like, you bring in guys to fit in. So you got to figure out, all right, what is John and them saying? Let me go out and figure out what the piece that I can bring in to what they're saying to help improve upon things for this ball club. That is where I now am like, you knew that you wanted him in coverage, or you didn't, or he didn't fit, or what was it that now all of a sudden he doesn't fit compared to having it with Alohi, who did fit and is playing right away, versus CJ, who isn't playing right away? Are you saying Malachi is better now? Like, what is it? Did you bring him in to know that you want to play him now, or you were just hoping for later on and he got disgruntled and so you had to part ways?
Those are the questions that, again, I'm not sure we're going to get the answers to. You're right, Q. But when you talk about CJ Gardner-Johnson's agent laying it out there, Adam Schefter put it out after the Ravens traded for a safety. We were looking for a clearer path to play. Makes me think that that something was communicated one way and then another move happened, and all of a sudden it's like, well, wait, what about what we just talked about like 3 hours? I don't know. So there's a lot going on here. They now have to, find something else. They signed Josh Tupou back to the practice squad in his place, so we will see how the secondary unfolds. But CJ Gardner-Johnson lasts a whole week with the Ravens before that ends up going awry. But coming up in the second part of the show, we'll dive into the offensive line. That has certainly gone awry this season, but not according to the Ravens coaches. It seems like it's like what they're seeing from a couple of the players that are very controversial within the fan base right now. So stay tuned. Plenty coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, this show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. Makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. And the Ravens and Rams game in week 6, the Ravens, they came into that game as 7-point home underdogs. The Rams were favored with 7 points on the road, and the Rams, they won that game 17-3. So for the Rams, that 7-point road favorite looked pretty good. And for Tyler Higbee, he scored a touchdown. Anytime touchdown Tyler Higbee, that was looking good too. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com, download the FanDuel app today, and get started.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Ostreicher is still here with Qadry Ismail talking Ravens football. We talked about the very interesting CJ Gardner-Johnson situation in Baltimore. It lasted a whole week. But now we're going to dive into something that's lasted the whole season, and that is poor offensive line play for the Baltimore Ravens. All across the board, it's been pretty poor, and that has had an impact, obviously, on Lamar Jackson, on the quarterback position, on how the Ravens run the football. Particularly, Q, you and I have talked about this a lot, whether it's on the squad show with Sam, you and I, or just you and I talking alone. I mean, the guard position was one of those positions. You mentioned Eric DeCosta in the first part of the show. That's a position that Eric DeCosta, I think, did a poor job of getting guys in that can compete for those jobs. It felt like the organization, DeCosta, Harbaugh, et cetera, just wanted to hand those jobs to the guys who they felt like very early on, Faalele and Voorhees, without any competition really, only drafting Emory Jones in the 3rd round. And we know Emory's just now returning to practice. There was no veteran brought in. There was no other competition brought in. And I mean, if your competition is Ben Cleveland, we know he's not starting for this team. So, I mean, at this point, that was kind of the writing on the wall is, hey, we're giving these jobs to Faalele and Voorhees who weren't proven without any other competition. And now George Warhop, who's the Ravens offensive line coach, he was asked about Daniel Faalele and Andrew Voorhees. And, they have not been good this season. We can just say that. Now, George Warhop had a different tune. He said, quote, "Those guys get better every week. I thought last week they both had pretty solid games. I would say maybe the Houston game wasn't one of their best games, but other than that, I really don't have a lot of negative things to say about those two guys. Every week, if you watch them play, they get better. There have been some challenging defensive fronts we've had to deal with. I think Houston is really good. I think Cleveland is really good overall. And those were our average games as a unit dealing with those two fronts." Well, unfortunately, I do not agree with George Warhop. And, I think that you've talked about Faalele, so I'm gonna let you speak on it in a second here. But I want to bring up some stats because Bo Smolka, he put together a list over from PFF about some of these grades for these guys through the first 6 weeks. Now, Andrew Voorhees was the top offensive grade for this team over on PFF for week 6 with 77.3. But through 6 games, PFF positional rankings for the Ravens offensive linemen, Ronnie Stanley ranks 24th among tackles. Andrew Voorhees, 40th among guards. Tyler Linderbaum, he's 4th among centers, which, that's good. Daniel Faalele, 45th among guards. And Roger Rosengarten, 38th among tackles. Now, I get that George Warhop Q is not going to go up there and just bash his guys. I understand that. They're just not going to do that. But I do have to push back on the fact that we're still seeing a lot of issues with these guys. They've had better games than others, but the bar is so low right now that even their great games right now would kind of fall in average to below average territory because of how bad they've been, particularly at the guard spots, which clearly are still an issue.
So I think everything you're saying, it's interesting with regards to Warhop's comments, but then also the PFF grades. You could say, as a organization trying to protect its players, the PFF grade, there might be a scheme that they think we're doing, but technically we are not doing that scheme. Therefore, what you thought was a mistake is actually what the guy is making up for the other guy's mistake. So they can, play with that. Now, at the same time, when it comes to what I have witnessed via the video tape and what we've seen throughout this portion of the season, the first 6 weeks, it's some really bad play from this offensive line. And when you needed to make a play, there just wasn't that there. Case in point, on a lot of the short yardage scenarios, they failed. When it comes to the Lions game, to have 7 sacks on Lamar Jackson, they failed. When it came to the Houston Texans game, they failed. When it came to the Rams, they looked good at times, but when you ultimately need to have physical on physical, it doesn't take a rocket scientist and an offensive line coach that has a pedigree of recognizing defensive fronts and what is a 3 technique versus a 5 technique versus an outside 9 versus. You don't need all that. But what we do see is Daniel Faalele not getting it done, falling on the ground. His guy coming scot-free. What we do see is Roger Rosengarten just not being able to win at the point of attack. What we do see is Voorhees not winning at the point of attack. What we do see is Ronnie Stanley, whether it is in the Kansas City game, not fully ready to go, but stiff is all stiff, and okay, fine, you got your ankle, but still, you played, therefore, you get looked at and critiqued. When you see these guys doing mistakes that are just, bad mistakes, and you're 1 and 5, and there are plays that are critical plays, like, for example, the physicality to get 1 yard when you're inside the 1 yard line and you don't have the physicalness to get that less than 1 yard, that is a problem. And no amount of sugarcoating it, makes it any better.
Yeah, you turn on that film, and let me tell you, it's not good. I mean, you mentioned it. Daniel Faalele is falling all over the place, other guys, and it's not just Faalele, too. I mean, you mentioned Rosengarten and others, but, it's just the fact that there was no competition at those guard spots, which I don't think they did their best to find the best 5. Right now, they're not playing their best 5, in my opinion. I think that Corey Bullock should get an opportunity at right guard over Daniel Faalele. Again, we know Ben Cleveland is in the doghouse. We know he's not going to play, not going to start for them. I think Bullock showed a lot during the preseason. I would make that change. John Harbaugh said everything's on the table. But the question is, are they actually going to make that change or not? I think they need to. They need to switch up something. And that, to me, feels like the 1-for-1 that I would do, especially if they're not going to make a coaching change, which seems like they're not going to do that. So Bullock, to me, is the guy that deserves more playing time. Emory Jones is someone that, could be an option, but he just started doing pass protection for the first time yesterday.
Why would you draft Emory Jones, though? What round was he drafted in?
He was a 3rd rounder.
So that's a high pick, and you knew he had a shoulder. You're like, okay, so there are no other guys that were graded higher than him, or there was no other aggressive play to get the upgrade, which, to your point, Kevin, when you say about competing, I know you're bringing in a slew of receivers. I know you're bringing in a slew of defensive backs. So competition, why Emory Jones? Again, this is the EDC. Who are your guys scouting to say his shoulder? Where did you miss medically? John, if you're sitting there and you're part of the coaches to look at the tape to see, wow, I like the way this Emory Jones guy is playing. Oh, wow, Gee, look how he did let's look and see. Oh, let's give him a grade. Okay, great. Boom. Where are the other guys that are in that Emory Jones realm that didn't have the shoulder?
I'm curious to see like what went into everything with Emory Jones. And again, like it's not about Emory Jones, the player, like himself. It's about the process of getting guys in. And, Jones was someone, he had pedigree at LSU. Like I think he's going to be a really good player, but it does make me wonder what the process was scouting wise for Emory Jones. And again, those are details we probably won't get in full, but it still does raise the question. So offensive line certainly needs help. And this team just needs to get healthy. So coming up in the final part of the show, we're diving into if health can actually save this Ravens team with some of the guys expected back. Stay tuned. So much coming your way on Locked On Ravens. First, this show was brought to you by Gametime. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. I love zone deals, too. You pick the section, and Gametime picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still talking with you here on this Wednesday edition of the show. Ravens 1-5 during their bye week. And Q, the good news for Baltimore is that they will probably, again, it's not set in stone, but they'll probably be getting some guys back after the bye week, mainly Lamar Jackson, Roquan Smith. Hopefully Patrick Ricard will be back by that point. You still need to do something about your outside linebacker room because you only got 3 guys in there now. That's something that they should probably make a move outside the organization to do unless they feel confident enough in Malik Ham, for example, to come up. But the question is, Q, Lamar Jackson's been asked to do a lot of things for this Ravens team. He's been asked to save them in a lot of different situations. He saved John Harbaugh's job back in 2018 when he was in all those trade rumors, and they've asked him to be Superman, to, carry a roster that probably wasn't as good as Lamar Jackson made it look. And now they're going to ask him to come back and essentially win almost every game for this Ravens team to at least try to sneak him into the playoffs. Can health save this Ravens team? Can Lamar Jackson save this Ravens team? Or do you think this roster, particularly on the offensive line, is too far gone, or, there are too many holes? Because look, you can be Lamar Jackson, you can be Derrick Henry, you can have great players in your secondary or whatnot or defensively. But if you do not have your trenches right, if your offensive line is not good and your defensive line is not good, that's where it all is. It's up front. That's where it starts for a team. And right now, even with Lamar Jackson coming back, the big question is, can those guys protect Lamar and block Lamar and let him go do his thing? Or is it going to be more of the same coming out of the bye?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of the same coming out of the bye if the offensive and defensive lines can't get it together. I think that this is the National Football League, and I am the hugest Lamar Jackson fan when it comes to his talents, when it comes to him showing he's one of one with his unbelievable abilities as a quarterback. But I also recognize this is the ultimate team sport. We've seen where you've had great quarterbacks and they've had some faulty offensive line play, or they've had others around them not really be able to show up, or they had really bad defenses. Ultimately, you're 1-5. When you had a defensive front that failed to get to the quarterback, Josh Allen kept the ball and got back into the game. Lamar Jackson was on the sideline. And Oliver was able to either A, punch the ball out, or B, knock Lamar down really hard on a 3rd down call. So therefore, the 4th down call, hit him so hard he was cramping. So therefore, he had to go off to the side. And that is not some ha-ha funny thing. I'm just saying what it is as far as defensive front, offensive line. When it comes to the Texans, the offensive line literally couldn't do much. So therefore, the defensive front should have done something. And yeah, we didn't see Lamar Jackson. But my point is, ultimate team sport, marched right down the field and kept on scoring. C.J. Stroud Like, he revitalized his doggone season to the point where he was quarterback of the week, AFC player of the week. When you see what they did against the Cleveland Browns or the Lions, my God, man, Aiden Hutchinson and company, they were just getting after Lamar, and he wasn't able to set up and make just throws that are routine throws. It's not about having him put on his Superman cape every single play. That's my point. There are times where he should be able to pick and choose when to put on his cape. If you can't protect, or if he's like sitting there frantic, why have to put on your Superman cape when you're confronted with kryptonite every single play? That's not real. That's not reality when it comes to the National Football League. So yes, Lamar being healthy is what this team needs. No question about it. But the ultimate team sport, you need more than Lamar. You need all hands on deck. A 1-5 team means there are a heck of a lot more holes that need to be filled in, rather than having Superman come back knowing that he's going to be faced with kryptonite the entire time. Y'all need a lead-lined suit, a.k.a. the offensive line, to keep some of that kryptonite off of him so he can go out there and be the guy that you know he can be.
It's not fair to Lamar Jackson to put him in that situation or circumstance where he has to be Superman over and over and over again. Do you think he would trade a Kevin Zeitler on the offensive line? Maybe you go for an outside linebacker to help the defense in the trenches, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, Jermaine Johnson, etc. Jeffrey Simmons now, the Titans fired their head coach, so maybe they're looking to offload some pieces. I mean, is there enough of the deadline or a move of the deadline that you think could help save this team externally, or do you just think that's, going for that big swing isn't the Ravens' MO and they're not going to change this year?
If you believe that you can salvage your season, do what is necessary, Eric DeCosta, to get players in. Do what is necessary, Zach Orr, Todd Monken, John Harbaugh allowing it to matter, or to get the best players on the field to surround Lamar to help him be at his absolute best, to therefore win those said ball games that you feel it's all right there in front of you. This is a seminal moment in Ravens, John Harbaugh, Eric DeCosta history under the Lamar Jackson era. This is a seminal moment. This bye week will say an awful lot as far as what this season is going to turn into. A season that was supposed to be win now, a season that was supposed to be Super Bowl aspirations. Now you're barely clinging on to hopefully trying to figure out how to win 9 games.
It's crazy that for this team, I mean, look, a trade could help, improved play could help, but you still have to dig yourself out of that hole. Certainly is possible. But again, the season feels pretty dire right now. They need to be able to use this bye week to their advantage. But Q, I appreciate you. Thank you for hopping on. Before I get you out of here, tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
Mental Training, mentaltraining.com is where you can find me. Doesn't matter the person, doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter if it's a group, sports team, an individual. We're here for your human movement and sports performance training. At the same time, WJZ, you'll check me out there. Alex Glaze, Grace Grill, and I, we all break it down on WJZ, Purple Pregame Show, and a slew of other shows that you'll see us on. At the same time, each and every week, it is Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher and I, right here. We also have the squad show, Sam and Joku. Well, we just felt like, we have ultimate chemistry with him. So Sam and I, boom, Kevin and I, boom, the 3 of us, we all said, let's get together. We got together, and now we're there on our squad show to talk weekly, twice a week, hanging out, talking shop Ravens with you.
And the squad show's tonight. So it's Wednesdays. Squad show is Wednesdays at 7:30, and then as well after games. So we have it twice a week, like Q said. Be sure to check that out. And be sure to check Q out as well as missiletraining.com. All the links will be in the description down below. Q, I appreciate you. Thank you so much again. And thank you to everybody who watched and listened to Locked On Ravens today. We'll be back here, of course, with the squad show later tonight, as well as another Locked On Ravens episode tomorrow morning. So be sure to stay tuned, hit the like and subscribe button in video form, follow along and subscribe in audio form, and I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.